were there wounded in this prison? What kind of medical facilities did they have, and how did they take care of people who may have been wounded?
They had a little field hospital where they took care of people. Now, if people got, it seemed like the practice that the Germans had is you were wounded badly, they'd put you in a hospital and get you to where you could travel.
Yeah.
And you might still not be completely healed, but they'd put you in a prison camp to finish your recuperation. I had one close friend that I got acquainted with who was a fighter pilot, had gotten shot down, and I think he burned a leg pretty bad getting out of his plane. So that even though he evaded and got with the French underground, he never really got healed until the Luftwaffe, not the Luftwaffe, what did they call the German?
The SS?
It wasn't SS, but it was
Gestapo?
Gestapo. He got turned over to the, I guess the Gestapo were the ones who broke up the ring or caught him being sneaked out of the country. They were almost to the Spanish border in France.
All right.
And anyway,
in the Pyrenees Mountains, or
yeah, he was about to go into the Pyrenees and get across, and they got caught, and there was a girl who had helped him that they'd fallen in love, and I'm getting West Side here with this story, but anyway, she was part of the underground, and he was in the same room with us from the time he got there until the war was over, and he never told us anything other than that he'd gotten caught trying to get out through the underground and had been put in a Luftwaffe jail. Got put in a Gestapo jail. And during that time, he was beaten again and treated pretty. They acted like he was a saboteur rather than being an airman, and treated him pretty roughly. Didn't give him much treatment for his leg. But finally, I guess they decided they got all the information out of him they could, and had to recognize him as an airman and a POW. And they put him into a hospital, and he recovered from his leg injuries. And then they sent him on to us. So it seemed that the practice was to get them where they were ambulatory and healing before they bring them to the prison camp.
Well, I would think that in that point in time in Germany that just about everything was being rationed, and it must have been difficult to get medical supplies rationed out to these prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Tell me about food. You've told us, I've heard a lot of these stories when I was kids, but I think it's pretty interesting to know what they gave you to eat.
Well, the mainest thing that they gave us was the boxes that came in, boxes of food, cigarettes and stuff that came through from the Red Cross. And we got a Red Cross box for months after we got there. We got a Red Cross box, each one of us, each week. And it had such things as a little can of peanut butter, a tin of Spam, 5 packs of cigarettes, razor blades, and sometimes razors, crackers. There's almost enough. We could have lived on what they sent. What the Germans
really could have just about lived.
Yeah, we lived pretty meagerly, but we could have survived on what they were sending us. But the Germans, for most of the time, well, I guess all the time, on bread, they gave us started out giving us about must have been about a half of a loaf of bread. It was dark, hard bread, tough bread. And it had a sour taste to it. It was a little bit gummy and had a sour taste, and took a while to get used to. But anyway, over time they cut back where we were down to a quarter of a loaf apiece. It went from a half to a third to a quarter of a loaf apiece a day. And they gave us things like potatoes and cabbage. And from time to time we'd get some beef. And even occasionally one time I remember particularly, they gave us a keg of beer for the barracks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had a radio loudspeaker in the hallway where they were the ones who decided what we were going to listen to, but I guess we were all hooked up on the same circuit. And it was mostly German stations playing music, sometimes give some war information in German. But we had an underground newspaper that was published in the camp, and it was usually a one sheet, maybe sometimes two, printed on both sides, and sneaked into the barracks right at the time they closed the barracks down for the night.
Where was this newspaper printed? How did that happen?
It was printed, I guess, during the time, it was probably printed at night, during the time that the barracks were all locked down, and we hardly ever had any German visitors during that time. We couldn't get out, and they didn't come in. So I guess they print it one night and send it out to us the next afternoon to be circulated in the barracks. There was one piece of paper that went to everybody that was in the barracks.
But there were multiple copies of this piece of paper.
But there's only one copy that went to each barracks.
How did they print it by hand, or did they have some kind of
mechanical? They had a typewriter. They used a typewriter.
A typewriter.
Yeah. There was an office in each one of the compounds where the senior American officer was housed, and he had a little office. I just imagine the typewriter was there.
How did you get a sense for how the war was progressing, whether it was going in favor of the Allies or against the Allies, or what clues did you have for how the war was?
We got a good picture of it every night in that newspaper.
And where was that information coming from?
It was coming in supposedly after the war. They said that it was coming in to a radio that was under one of the toilet seats. Now, the toilet seats were a multi-hole plank.
Okay.
And apparently somebody put a radio receiver under there. Maybe they ran some wires out, to the roof where they could pick it up easier. But they got the news. They got the BBC News and printed it.
Okay.
And the Germans, during that fall, the Allied forces were racing across France, and we had about up to a week better information than the Germans were getting on their radio.
Huh. And just to put everything in perspective, this August of 1944, when you were, July and August of 1944, when you were shot down and captured and taken to a prison war camp, this was 2 months after the D-Day invasion in June of that same year.
Yeah, when we got shot down, there had been no breakout successful breakouts from the beachheads.
Everybody was still.
They were just up on some of the cliffs above the beaches, but they hadn't made much penetration by that time.
Interesting.